Hey everybody. Ready to finally unlock manual mode on your DSLR?
Oh, yeah.
We're going to take a deep dive into some of the key insights from this article from Live Snap Love. It's called How to Choose Your Camera Settings in Manual Mode.
Awesome.
So the goal here is to give you the confidence to ditch auto.
Yes.
Take creative control, you know? I used to think manual mode was like this secret society, you know?
Oh, I know it can feel that way at first
Right?
with all those settings and numbers.
Yeah.
But honestly, once you understand how it all works together, it's so freeing.
Okay, so the article breaks down the three main settings, aperture, shutter speed, and ISO.
Mm-hmm.
But it goes beyond just defining them, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes that, the real key is
Yeah.
understanding the interplay between the settings
Okay.
and making decisions based on, what you want the photo to look like your creative vision.
Your vision. And the examples they give are so fascinating. Let's start with aperture. They use this portrait photo with a beautifully blurred background,
Yeah.
shot at f2.2. So what's the thought process behind choosing that specific aperture?
Well, in that portrait, the photographer wanted to isolate the subject, make him really pop. And choosing a wide aperture like an f2.2 creates a shallow depth of field,
Okay.
which means only a small part of the image is in focus.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives you that nice creamy blurred background, which the article called buttery.
I love that.
It's a good way to put it.
Okay, that makes total sense. Now, speaking of aperture, there's this striking landscape photo with sunburst effect shot at f22.
Right.
Now, that's on the opposite end of the aperture spectrum.
It is,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah, and a narrow aperture, like f22,
Okay,
creates a much larger depth of field, so way more of the scene is in focus.
gotcha.
And when you combine that with shooting directly into a light source, you get those really cool starburst effects.
So it's not just about what you're shooting, but also about using aperture creatively
Yeah.
to get that starburst, for example.
Exactly. And it's also important to remember that sometimes you're choosing a setting
Yeah.
to balance the overall exposure, like in that landscape photo. The narrow aperture was necessary to keep the image from getting overexposed.
That's a great point. There's no perfect setting in isolation. It's all about
Yeah, it's all about the
play. Okay, let's shift gears to shutter speed. There's a really great action shot of a kid moving, running.
Yes.
So what went into that decision to choose that shutter speed?
To freeze the action, they used a really fast shutter speed,
Wow.
like 1800th of a second.
Wow.
That's so key to getting sharp images of moving subjects, especially like sports or wildlife.
Oh, wait, I'm thinking back to that beautiful picture of the light streaks with the bubbles.
Oh, yeah.
That used to really slow shutter speed, right? How do you decide when to go fast and when to go slow?
It all comes back to the look you're going for and the limitations,
Mhm.
In the bubble photo, they wanted to capture the dreamy light streaks.
Yeah.
So they went with a slow shutter speed, 113th of a second.
But wouldn't a faster shutter speed have made more sense there to freeze the bubbles?
Well, that's where the creative choice comes in.
Okay.
They wanted to emphasize the motion and the light, not each bubble.
So sometimes your creative vision dictates a specific shutter speed and then you have to adjust everything else.
Exactly. They probably had to use a narrow aperture
Okay.
and maybe a higher ISO to make up for the long exposure time. Make sure it was properly exposed.
See, this is what I mean by understanding the interplay.
Yes.
It's not just about knowing what each setting does by itself.
Right.
Okay, one more setting to tackle. ISO. The article mentions this low light photo shot at a crazy 20/5600 ISO.
Whoa.
Why go so high? And what are the trade-offs? Well, they were shooting in super low light. And they needed to boost the camera's sensitivity to even capture the image.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where ISO comes in.
Yes.
But as you crank up the ISO, you introduce noise.
You do. Grain? Yep. It's always a balancing act.
Yeah.
In that scenario, they definitely decided that capturing the image, even with some noise, was better than missing the shot altogether.
Right.
Imagine a candlelit scene,
Yeah.
Without bumping up the ISO, you'd end up with a totally underexposed photo.
So high ISO is kind of like a last resort,
Yeah.
but it can save you.
It can. Absolutely.
Really.
Think about concert photography or astrophotography.
Yeah.
You need that high ISO to gather enough light.
This all makes so much sense now. It's not about memorizing settings.
Right.
It's about understanding the relationship between them and making the choices that you want for your vision.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Now, remember that Live Snap Love article also touched on the idea of figuring out where to expose the image. They mentioned it's covered in their Auto to Awesome course, but Do you have any quick tips you
Yeah,
can share?
sure.
Oh, yeah. I used to struggle with that too.
Really?
Big time. It felt like a guessing game.
Oh, yeah. Well, one of the simplest things is to use your camera's light meter.
Okay.
It'll analyze the scene and kind of tell you if your settings are going to be overexposed or underexposed.
Okay.
You can then just adjust your aperture, your shutter speed, or your ISO to get the look you want.
So it's like a guide,
Yeah,
not a dictator.
exactly. Think of it as like your co-pilot,
Okay.
helping you with the exposure triangle.
I like that. So we've covered a lot of ground here. Aperture, shutter speed, ISO, even using the light meter.
Yeah.
What's the biggest takeaway for our listener who's ready to like really conquer manual mode?
I'd say it's this. There are no perfect settings.
Right.
Every photo situation is different.
Yeah.
The best settings are the ones that let you like express your creative vision.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to experiment, you
Yeah.
know. Push the boundaries and break the rules.
Yes. Embrace the freedom
Yeah.
that comes with understanding how to control your camera. I remember when I finally made that switch from auto to manual,
Huh.
it was like a whole new world opened up.
It is.
It was scary at first, but then it was like, whoa,
It's empowering.
so empowering.
It is. It's like
Right?
learning a new language.
Yeah.
You know, at first you're fumbling with the basics, but then all of a sudden you can express yourself in ways you never thought possible.
That's such a great analogy.
Yeah.
And the more you practice, the more fluent you become. You start to see the world differently.
Totally.
Noticing details you never even noticed before.
Yeah. It's like you've got a new set of eyes.
Yeah, it's like you've unlocked this code.
Yeah.
And now you can like talk to your camera.
Totally. And like the best part is there's no right or wrong answer.
Mm.
It's all about like what you want to do.
Our listeners probably like, man, I have so many ideas.
I hope so.
I want to go try all this stuff. So what's like one final thought-provoking question we can leave them with?
How about this? What kind of photos do you picture yourself taking with manual mode?
Yep.
And what setting would be the most important to start with?
I love that. It makes them think about their own style.
Yeah, exactly. Once they know what they want to create and how to do it,
Yeah.
the rest just kind of falls into place.
Well, this has been an amazing deep dive into manual mode.
It has.
We demystified all the settings.
We did.
We explored how they all work together.
For sure.
We even talked about how to use the light meter.
It's been fun chatting with you.
It has. Remember, everybody, the world is full of photo opportunities.
It is.
So get out there
Go take some pictures.
and capture them.